It is an honor to be here this evening. The honor is not only that of being asked to say a few words to commemorate the release of Shobha De's present book. It is also an honor to do so in her beloved hometown, a city so deeply embedded in my own affections and habit of life for these last 40 years. It feels right and good to be here. Political correctness taken care of, I can now dare to move on. May I first wish Shobha the happiest of birthdays in her 60th year, an achievement of longevity in itself, although to see and hear her tonight, the mere accumulation of years is not what first springs to mind. Needless to say, it is obvious to anyone that Shobha Day is not over yet, far from it. Indeed, so all of us might hope to mark such rites of passage. Shobha herself tells us how she marks each day, watching the sun descend over South Mumbai into the Arabian Sea, acknowledging its blessings of life and the promise of another day to come, that is, when she is at home. Considering the contents of this book, she may mark each day in such a manner, for not every day in Mumbai, presumably watching the sun decline into many different horizons as she makes quiet prayer. So in its 60th year of independence, might we do the same for India? Count our blessings, know our strengths, admire the great achievements of our compatriots as the sun sinks into the Arabian Sea, and we also mark this rite of passage. These blessings are the promise of another dawn, our new decades, our next decades and generations, our hope for a shared future. I applaud Shobha's achievement. I applaud India's achievement. I applaud the applause of Shobha. I applaud your applause of Shobha's applause. That the dynamism and resourcefulness of the achievers of contemporary India are indeed extraordinary. Our industrialists, people of commerce, and emerging greatness of the Indian middle class are blessings. Let us not forget the blessings of plenty, even surplus, provided by our veritable Stakhanovite agriculturists, that is, those professional farmers amongst us. As Shobha notes, the present energetic youthfulness of our population is a blessing. The proven endurance, stability, and justice of our political system, the largest democracy in the world, surely this is the greatest of blessings. For at its best, it will enrich us more than all else, economically, socially, culturally, and intellectually. These are the promised outcomes of a virtuous body politic at the core of our nation. We count such blessed bounty and feel enriched in our first 60 years of independence. And now, this evening, in the darkness as we await the dawn, there is time to speak of other things. Shobha must be publicly defined according to her own wish, primarily as a writer. This must be respected. She writes, it is her active vocation, her creative labor. Her prolific works are truly extraordinary, spanning all the many shades between professional journalism and literature over a long and productive career. The writing is distinctly hers, an insatiable curiosity, chronically alert observational skills, playful juxtapositions, impassioned responses, and a sheer joy of life. She brings graceful intelligence to the frivolous and mordant wit to the serious. She is eminently readable. She is, actually, beyond my powers of description. I humbly defer to her. But I was most interested to hear that this present book has already been noted for its, within quotes, distinctly female voice. By contrast, within its pages, Shobha expresses legitimate concerns about her professional achievements being colonized by her sex. As she says, and I quote her, "The minute you create separate categories for successful women, you are already insulting womankind. There are counter-arguments in abundance, and determined feminists will point out the inspirational stroke aspirational value of holding up such role models." Shobha is right. But Shobha, you're also right about something else as well. As much as we applaud and dwell upon our blessings now as we await the next dawn, we must balance our enthusiasms with careful analysis, acknowledge our weaknesses, and then speak out against their ills. So, I'm going to try to be one of those determined feminists that you mentioned who disagree with you abundantly but respectfully. The reason is this. The insult is not that some people create a separate category for successful women, however well-intentioned that insult might be. The real insult is that even in the most enlightened cultures across the globe, there is still a separate category from that of a human being per se. It is the separate category of being a woman, whether successful or not. This is the insult. It is an insult to all of us, men and women alike. It is an insult to humanity. All of us here tonight have been the beneficiaries of comparative privilege. Most of us here have probably grasped the potential of incipient privilege, and through endurance, intelligence, and luck, we have flourished beyond its first blessing. Individual asymmetries can thus be largely overcome by individual achievement. But that does not mean the asymmetries aren't still there. They remain with us, even if they merely cloud our thoughts. For others, these asymmetries are real, insuperable, structural obstacles. They suffer. The absurd and intolerable way in which humanity has been separated from each other by all manner of prejudice against difference is at its most shameful when it categorizes half of the world's population into a different, secondary, and profoundly demeaning status from that of human mankind. In India, it is worse. Womankind is not even permitted the dignity of 50% of our population. Over the last 4 decades in this country, the child sex ratio has been declining, with the sharpest fall from 1981 onwards. In the year 2001 census found that there were 927 girls for every 1,000 boys in the age group of 6 years and below, compared to 945 in the year 1991. The male-female equilibrium will be lost within a few decades. This would not only be a future natural disaster. It is now already a source of deep shame to us that 10 million girls have disappeared at birth in the last 20 years alone. Where have they gone? We cannot blame economic poverty. It is Rajasthan and Punjab, 2 of India's wealthiest states, where female infanticide is most prevalent. When we look for these lost daughters, sisters, and mothers, do we there find our all-pervasive progress? When we look for them, do we there find our most revered cultural traditions in which we take such pride? No. We find these lost souls murdered by a lethal alliance of new technological and medical advances, progress, and one of the most backward chauvinist traditions in our culture. Thus we know our present strengths in how we are weak. It is one of our greatest national weaknesses that we ignore this catastrophe to value females equally from birth in our culture and society, in our minds and in our lives. One of our greatest failures is that we have permitted it to worsen. There are those deserving of more or less opprobrium, but we are all to blame. It is our problem, India's problem. Shobha Day may indeed only happen to be that separate category of womankind by the sheer whim of fate. And after all, it may be an irrelevant public identity to her, the identity of being a woman. I completely agree with her that for the present, claiming the category of humanity is infinitely more appealing. And thus she chooses to be primarily a writer before a female one, a voice before a female voice, to claim power, not woman power. She has a human right to be successful according to her own lights, as does anyone else, and I defend her claim absolutely. But then I find that I must disagree with Shobha's choice in order to follow her lead in critical judgment. There must be one ultimate category for all of us, wherein our most basic human rights and duties reside. 60 years after our independence, it is now time for humanity to be decolonized. Here, I must now defer to my betters for such a task. So, I applaud Shobha now. I wish to honor her present choice with all due respect and admiration. I applaud her achievements as a professional writer, a serious writer, creative writer, an astute cultural and political commentator. But I will not await an unpromised dawn of change to arrive when females, girls, women are no longer subject to slaughter at birth and direct and insidious discrimination throughout the rest of their lives. In that better future, it would not be problematic to acknowledge a true respect for Shobha Day in her entirety, as all women of our country should be, whether successful or not, without a hint of any underhanded criticism by naming their womanhood, nor castrated as honorary men. I preempt its arrival. As a gesture to hope, I honor Shobha in the entirety of her identity right now. I wish to publicly acknowledge the true extent of her achievement in contemporary India. I hope, so I applaud Shobha now, problematically and impatiently. Yet after all, I believe that Shobha Day already claims that unmistakable identity in this most recent book. Within its pages, she insists on being entire. She thinks with her entirety, and she entirely writes it. Of all her shrewd predictions for the future, I hope that this is how she proves to be most gifted with foresight. Nevertheless, this is still not enough with which to honor her. I must also honor my conscience as an Indian and as a man in the present for this particular dawn ahead that we will soon see rise to our east. I salute her achievements simply as a woman in India today, regardless of any initial comparative privilege. She has met inveterate prejudice and active discrimination with endurance, resistance, courageous self-belief, and the sanity of good humor. Simply because it is the general fate of contemporary women in our nation, it does not belittle her achievement of transcendence. Surely, Shobha, the more achievements, the better. Finding the name of the author in a larger font than the title of the book is, I believe, a brave and conscious beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.